Would you rather be robbed or never be able to afford a house? Would you rather pay nothing for healthcare or be able to access healthcare quicker? These are some serious questions that you should ask yourself before finding out which country would be best for you. Yup. So if you've ever thought of moving to North America, you have probably asked yourself whether Canada or the United States would be better. In this episode of English Comprehensible Input, you and I are going to discuss which country would be better for you. This will be based on how safe each country is, average wages in comparison with housing costs, costs of living including food, gas, and healthcare, taxes, and which one is easier to move to. I'll give a score for each country in every one of these sections. And at the end of the video, I'll tell you which country wins. But keep in mind, I am just a guy with a camera and a microphone. I don't know everything. Let's get started with the video. So, which one is safer? Canada is much safer than the United States in general. According to the globalpopulationreview.com, Canada ranks number 11 on the Global Peace Index, whereas the USA comes in at around 129. The US's crime rates can be compared with those of Ecuador, El Salvador, and Bolivia, for example, which is not so great in comparison with Canada, which has crime rates which can be easily compared to countries such as Singapore, Japan, and Norway. Here are some key crime statistics between the United States and Canada. Murder rates. In 2022, 874 people were murdered in Canada. That's about 2.3 people per 100,000. Whereas in the United States, 21,156 people were murdered in 2022. That's about 6.5 per 100,000. 2.3, 6.5. Ouch. Now let's talk about robberies. In Canada, 21,864 people were robbed in 2022. That's about 57.59 per 100,000 people. Whereas in the United States, during 2022, about 67 people per 100,000 were robbed. So yeah, you'll be safer in Canada than in the United States in general. But that's not to say that the United States is a dangerous place. It's just that some places are so dangerous in the United States that it makes the whole country look bad. So for safety, the United States is going to get a 3 out of 5 from me. And Canada is going to get a 4.5 out of 5. Good job, Canada. Now let's look at average wages versus home costs. If you're looking to build a new life and probably raise a family, eventually you're going to want a house. So let's see how difficult or easy it will be to get a house in Canada and the United States. First, let's look at Canada. Canada is extremely expensive. The average home price is about $700,000 to $740,000. And that's just the average number. There's some that are cheaper and a lot that are more expensive, but the average is $700,000 to $740,000. Now, the average salary in Canada is about $70,000 a year, meaning that one would have to spend about 10.2 salaries to get a house. To put this into perspective, in Mexico, for example, the average Mexican would have to save 8.18 salaries to be able to buy the average house in Mexico. So it would be easier to acquire or to buy a house being the average Mexican in Mexico than the average Canadian in Canada. So what about the United States? In the United States, the average home will cost between $430,000 and $470,000. That's just a little bit more than half of the price of the average home in Canada. However, the average wage in the United States comes in at $60,000 a year, a little bit less than in Canada. But this means that with the average salary, you would need to save 7.4 salaries to be able to buy a house. This is why, of course, most people's houses are bought using debt or loans from the bank, and they usually pay them off in 30 years. So wages compared with housing costs, the United States will get a 4.7 out of 5, and Canada is going to get a 2.75 out of 5. Now let's look at cost of living. We're going to go over some basic things such as milk, eggs, chicken, and gas so that you can get an idea of the differences in costs of things that you buy every day. Number 1, milk. In Canada, it costs about $1.95 per liter, whereas in the United States, you'll only be spending about $1 per liter. 1 pound of chicken in Canada will cost you about $7.32, whereas in the United States, it will cost you $4.08. The average kilo of bananas in Canada costs about $1.44. Whereas currently in the United States, that sells for about $1.68. A dozen eggs in Canada might cost you $2.83, whereas in the United States, it will cost you $2.93. Gas in Canada will run you about $1.04 a liter, whereas in the United States, that'll cost about 92 cents a liter. My score for the US cost of living, 4.25 out of 5. And Canada is gonna get about 3.75 because chicken and milk are things that people need often, and these are pretty basic needs that are twice as expensive in Canada. Now let's talk about healthcare. In general, healthcare is cheaper for people in Canada due to the fact that it's mostly paid for by taxpayer dollars or by the government. So since it's taken out of your checks before you get money from your job, whenever you use the healthcare, it will be free or cheap because you already paid for it. To make this comparison simple, I'll give you a couple things you might need done by a doctor, and I'll tell you the prices in each country. Okay, for example, an MRI scan. Basically, if you don't know what this is, it's mostly used to detect tumors, neurological disorders, and heart disease or blood clots. In Canada, if it's needed, you can get an MRI for free. However, if it's determined that you don't need an MRI scan and you want it anyway, it'll be between $280 and $400. In the United States, an MRI will cost between $1,000 and $1,500. Ouch! But with decent insurance, you should only pay about $300 to $500 out of pocket. Because in the United States, instead of paying for your insurance through the government, you pay a private company to insure you and take care of bills whenever you go to a hospital or a doctor. And the time you'll wait to get your MRI on average will be about 1 month. unless it's an emergency, obviously. So what about a bi-yearly checkup? It's very common that in Canada and the United States, people go to the doctor once or twice a year just to get a checkup, which means just to see if you're still healthy, if everything's okay with you. In Canada, this type of checkup or appointment is 100% free. You will not pay a cent. However, if you want to schedule that appointment today and you call the office, on average, it will take 22 weeks for you to get your appointment. However, these are bi-yearly checkups, which means twice a year. So you can schedule them in advance and the wait time really won't affect you. In the USA, however, you're going to pay $50 to $300 for the same checkup, depending on your insurance. On the other hand, it will only take about 29 days to get your appointment after calling the doctor's office. Would you rather have cheaper healthcare or quicker healthcare? Tell me in the comments what's more important to you. For this, I'll give the USA a score of 3.5 out of 5 and Canada a 3 out of 5. It's great that it's free, but if you have to wait, for me, I'd prefer to pay and not have to wait. Now let's look at taxes. In my opinion, taxes suck. They're the worst. However, I know that some people are okay with paying high tax rates if it means they get good services in return. So, tax rates for Canada. They always vary, but for the average income, which is $70,000 a year, if you live in, let's say, Ontario, you're going to pay 20.5% taxes to the federal government, to Canada, and another 9.15% to the Ontario government, making for a total of 29.65%. So even though you make $70,000 a year from your job, you'll only receive about $51,450 after you've been taxed. Now, if you make the average income in the United States, which is $60,000, and let's say that you move to Los Angeles, California, you'll pay 22% to the federal government, the government of the United States, 7.25% to California, and 3.25% to Los Angeles as a local tax rate. Meaning that if you get paid $60,000 a year from your job, you'll only take home about $40,500, or 67.5% of what you earned. But the thing is it changes a lot depending on where you choose to live. New York City gets taxed way higher than I do here in Mechanicsburg, Pennsylvania. So keep that in mind. These things change a lot, and they also change depending on how much money you make. For the United States, I'll give it a 3 out of 5 for taxes. And for Canada, I'll give it a 3.5 for taxes because it's a little bit better than Los Angeles, and also you get more for your money. But which one is easier to move to? Wonderful question. The answer is, drumroll please, Canada. So the Canadian immigration system works on what they call a point system. Basically, you as a candidate would be ranked and given a number of points based on your age, education, work experience, and language skills. The amount of points that you are scored at will determine if you will get an invitation to apply for permanent residency. However, the United States, it's a very complex and annoying system where at any time during the application process, an immigration officer can say, "I don't trust you, I don't like you, and I don't believe you," and reject your application completely. Furthermore, The USA only accepts about 20% as many immigrants per capita as Canada. So yeah, Canada definitely wins this. I'm gonna give the United States a 2.5 out of 5, and I'll give Canada a 4.25 out of 5. Okay, for the final score. Based on these factors, which were safety, average wages in comparison with housing costs, cost of living, healthcare, taxes, and ease of immigration, or how easy it is to immigrate. The final scores are 3.5 for the United States and 3.6 for Canada. Of course, these numbers really don't mean much because there are many factors that you should take into account before choosing the country you should move to, such as what kind of weather do you prefer? Or do you want to go to college in the place that you immigrate to? How much money are you willing to spend for that? What does your career path look like? What are the salaries in the United States versus in Canada for your position? But hey, we could go on about this all day. I hope that this video was interesting to you and that you enjoyed learning English through a topic that might be relevant to your future. Thanks for staying until the end and taking the time to learn English with me. Have a wonderful day. Goodbye.